After the first of the year, of course, that means it is Flying Pig time, and we are headed for the 24th edition of the Cincinnati Flying Pig Marathon powered by P&G. Ira Simpson Bush is with us, the CEO of PigWorks, the umbrella organization for the Flying Pig Marathon and so many other events. Iris, can you believe it? We are heading now to the 24th edition of the Flying Pig.
And here we are. Who would believe it? It's exciting. This year is off to a very exciting, I think, optimistic start. You know, we came back with the Flying Pig and the Queen Bee in the fall of 2021, and it was, I think, an excellent comeback and a very awesome experience for a lot of people. The energy was electrifying. It was a good return to flight. But here we are. This is the year where all of our events are now rescheduled. Permits have been issued. We are at our regular times. The Flying Pig. Well, first of all, I should say we have Bachfest coming up March. And then we have the Flying Pig first weekend in May. Everything is lining up beautifully for this year. So I think there is genuine reason for optimism. Our staff, our board of directors is so energized. It's like moving forward. We used a slogan through the pandemic, and it really applies now, forever forward. So we're so excited about the 24th running. We're, believe it or not, already putting some things in place for our anniversary year in 2023. We'll be celebrating the Pig's 25th anniversary. So watch this year. We're going to have some things in place to make sure that you can participate in 2023. But it's all about what we can do right now. And again, the city has been so very encouraging. We're very fortunate to have city officials who recognize that we've now earned the title of an icon in our community. They've been reaching out, asking how they can help, what they can do. Our sponsors have been so amazing through this. They're all retooling and you know, I can use the word pivot that's been around for a while, but they're even asking us, so what can we do? How can we help to make 2022 this awesome year? So I'd say on all fronts, volunteers are lining up. The charity partners are back. We're thrilled to get to, you know, reinstate what we're doing with them. So Betsy, I'd say everything looks like a go for a successful year. Betsy, it's just amazing for me, this long run. You and I have talked about, game day has been a part of the Flying Pig since I became the executive director. And several people have said, so how long have you really been around? And for a while, quite a long while. My previous career was in broadcast sales. I was very fortunate, got to spend, over approaching 30 years in broadcast sales. 20 of those years at WCPO. So the way that helped me to transition to the Flying Pig was a detour I certainly didn't expect. And many of life's detours, we just have to move forward and have the confidence that good things will come of it. I was the general sales manager in 1997 at WCPO, read an article that somebody was trying to bring a marathon to Cincinnati, had run a few, and thought, oh, wow, on a personal level, that's really exciting. My hometown's going to have its own marathon. I knew it would be great for the city and felt very strongly that the station should get involved. So in those days, went to my boss, asked if I could reach out and see if there's something we could do to associate. His pat reply was always, if you can sell it, you can do it. So I called Bob Coughlin, the founder, the guy who had this little vision and twinkle in his eye back in 97 about what was possible. He'd been running for years with Team and Training, knew their model, felt that we should do some things in Cincinnati that was perhaps a little different than what was being done in the running community. So I read this article, it sounded interesting, reached out to Bob, offered the station support. We met several times over the next few months. And in August of 1997, I joined the Flying Pig Marathon Board of Directors, served on the board until 2002, actually was on the search committee for the Flying Pig's next executive director. We had three different, actually, there was an interim, so four different executive directors in our first 4 years. The first one was an attorney who laid a wonderful foundation for us. Mike Boylan was on sabbatical and really only intended to do it for a year. Then we hired a local event coordinator, Kelly Weissman, who had been trained at Disney. By the way, in those days, thematic marathons, Disney was the only one, and come on, everything they do is thematic. So she seemed a great candidate to help us along, because obviously that was kind of the genesis of our founding, and one of the things that helped to set us apart. But in any case, Kelly joined us, and then it was a wonderful thing. She got pregnant and was ready to start a family, and I can attest to the fact that this job would be a little tough to navigate and manage with a baby and a burgeoning family. So then our third executive director was another local Cincinnatian, Scott Meyer, is part of the Frisch's family. Scott had been running for years with Team and Training, again, knew a very strong business model, had been serving on the board, made the switch to executive director. And I can only report this with happiness, and you'll see why, but Scott was diagnosed with leukemia, had been running for years for Team and Training to benefit the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and here he is diagnosed with it. Obviously couldn't continue his tenure, but let me add that Scott for years has been in complete remission, doing great. And so a man named Jim Bush stepped up. Jim owned City Dash. He was one of the founding board members, and he too took a sabbatical and served for 10 months as our executive director. I was on the search committee looking for who would be our next one. And, at the 11th hour, just decided to put my hat in the ring. Everyone on the committee felt strongly that we needed someone with a sales and marketing background. I could fill that, had achieved a certain amount of success in that arena, had run some marathons, had been on the board for years, thought I was preeminently qualified, put my hat in the ring. The board believed in me and gave me a shot. In 2002, actually April of 2002, just before the event, I became the executive director. Will acknowledge, I talked about transparency. A few weeks into it, I realized, had I known how much I didn't know, I wouldn't have had the nerve to apply. But in this industry, there are so many wonderful people. And I will admit, back then, in 2002, it was very male dominated. The women who were in the industry in race director positions were beginning to make a name for themselves. And now, oh my gosh, I would guesstimate, and I don't have the exact, but it's probably 35 to 40% of the directors are female. In any case, I can tell you that a lot of very influential, experienced men in this industry, not the least of which Dave McGilvery, the race director of Boston. When I first met him at an industry conference, I remember he came over, introduced himself, and said, "Oh, you're from Cincinnati. Tell me about that quirky little race." So that's how we were referred to in 2005. I believe that was when I first met him. Through the years, though, I have to tell you, the support, the best practices that are shared within this industry is really rather amazing, and a big part of why I was able to get up to speed, had mentors, had people on the national in the national industry, and also on a local basis. It's just been, we have an amazing board of directors. I could go through a litany of names, but I'll forget someone, and their support, their guidance through the years, runners with so much more experience than me. We've been very fortunate that our board we have an attorney, accountant, several marketing types, runners, but not all runners, a sports psychologist. It just runs the gamut. Every area of need that we've experienced, we have a board member who brings that kind of expertise. So that's how Iris Bush not only got up to speed in a record amount of time, but has been able to navigate the changing industry. We were very unique. I referenced that thematic uh, moniker we were given. Well, we don't give prize money. In those days, that was highly unusual. Bob Coughlin had created a model for volunteers because we are a not for profit. And I might add, that's one of our stories that we really have to spread the word. There are still people who don't realize we're a not for profit who raises money for other charities. In a typical year, we have over 300 charities involved who benefit from their participation by fundraising with the Flying Pigs. So, as we were evolving and doing some things that were unique in the industry, I do remember in the early days, again, turning to a lot of very good people who don't always get the credit they deserve for assisting and helping me. But oftentimes in our meetings, we would bring up an idea and somebody would say, nobody does that. Then let's consider it. That's what we started doing to set ourselves apart. Now I will tell you, there are marathons across the country who are thematic. Everybody realized that's the way to create the kind of experience that runners are looking for. We've been several times complimented and gotten accolades about being the best marathon for newbies, a very well-run textbook case event that we put on with attention to all the details, a serious recognizing and supporting the serious undertaking it is, but we do it with fun. I'm not sure, but I think one Betsy Ross might have coined the phrase "putting the fun in the run."
and and just getting geared up for this season, as I say, that if you're a marathoner, if you're going to run the marathon in May, you should be training right now. The training groups, it seems as if they have exploded this month. Every weekend you see packs of runners out there already, in the snow and the horrible cold, but they're getting ready. Have you seen like a newfound enthusiasm for running? Are people just ready to get out there and get going again?
Oh, Betsy, I think so. And I think we're going to see some new to running people. I know in my own family, I gave training group gift certificates for Christmas. I mean, it has just been amazing to see how many people recognize the need. Not only physically, obviously, you physically benefit from movement, whether it's walking or running, but the therapeutic value during the quarantines, during the pandemic, so many people, I mean, let's be real, some people were getting stir crazy with the quarantine, no social interaction in your home, being a homemaker, a worker, a working parent, a teacher, all of the things, they needed an outlet. And so I think we're seeing a boom in part because there are a lot of new people to running. Yep, you're absolutely right. It has gone from, obviously, we've grown every year through the years, right up to the pandemic. So we knew that the running community in Greater Cincinnati was energized, and actually I think Harvey Lewis has often said it's a running mecca. But the thing is, we're now seeing a return to it on the part of many, and newfound interest from so many people who know that it makes them feel better mentally, emotionally, not just physically. So yep, that's the pretty exciting the pretty exciting part about our moving forward and all the things we can do now. My story, in the early years, watching us grow, doing things a little differently, to get to this point and say, I really feel I can still contribute because there's so many new needs. None of us can rely entirely upon the experience we've built through the years because our participants in the community at large want some different things. So that's been exciting and re-energizing, trying to figure out what experiences can we bring to the Flying Pig that will actually, meet people's expectations, keep them motivated and inspired, not only to keep moving, but to come back and enjoy the camaraderie, the inspiration you get from doing it with a group of people. Again, we're an outside endeavor. People seem very, very comfortable coming together in those training groups and preparing for what they could experience in March with Bachfest, in May with the pig, and throughout the upcoming year. We do know, and I think many are finding, it's kind of habit forming, infectious, if you will.
I think it is too. And you get kind of that runner's rush, that runner's high that everybody talks about. But I remember not quite 2 years ago, I interviewed you and Dave McGilvery. You mentioned him with the Boston Marathon. And Dave was not optimistic about the future of running. And he mentioned that, our job is to get as many people as we can stuffed into a small space and then tell them to go run. Obviously, that has changed now. But how do you see the future of marathons, of running in general? How do you see the event side of it changing? Because we can't pack all those people into one small space anymore. So how do you see the business of running evolving and really fitting the times that we are in right now?
Well, I think for the short term, Betsy, we've talked about growth, and I believe it's there. But I think at least for the foreseeable future, you're going to see all of the events have caps. We always prided ourselves on, being able to keep our events open right up, almost in many cases, right up to race weekend, to accommodate anyone and everyone who wanted to participate. That's probably not going to be the case for the next few years, because for a number of reasons, the spreading out, the space required that you just referenced. There is still that issue of the supply chain. We all have to order our supplies so far in advance, and not knowing exactly what the magic number, how many people to a T want to participate in our event. We have to set an optimistic goal and work within caps. That's new for us. I did speak with Dave not too long ago. I think for 2022, his optimism is back. Seems a little bit more into all that is possible. But also, we talked about the supply chain and the need for caps. In Boston, in many races, they've always had them. I know we can function with that. And I don't know that it'll be forever, but for the next few years, when we open registration, when we say supply or numbers we're almost full, numbers are growing, know that we really are being sincere about it. We will have caps, and we won't be able to move that needle the way we used to in the past. So that's one of the things I see for the next couple of years. I mentioned that I do believe we're going to see some new to running individuals at those start lines. So maybe not as much experience. We still seem to attract the elite runners, the people who are very serious about going out there and pushing themselves to do and be all they can be. But I really think we're going to see an awful lot of people, and that's where we really shine, is supporting those first timers and the people who are setting a personal goal, and we do what we can to try to support those goals each step of the way. So creating experiences to motivate them on the course, again, often hand in hand with our sponsors. But I think expanding the experience, beefing up the support, things like that may look and feel a little different in the upcoming years.
So let's talk about your optimism for 2022. And as we head to the 25th anniversary, looking around that boardroom that you were probably all sitting around, 20 plus years ago, first of all, could you ever have imagined the success of the Flying Pig Marathon, the growth of not just the marathon, but as I said, PigWorks, so many other events that are connected with it, and just how ingrained the Flying Pig Marathon is to this community? I always say that any event aspires to be the thing to do in town. The Flying Pig Marathon, whether it's a marathon or a half or a 10K, the Flying Pig Marathon has become the thing to do in this town. So look ahead, not just this year, but next year and down the road, and talk about your enthusiasm and your optimism for what this event means to the community and how you see this event evolving and growing in the future.
Well, I will acknowledge freely that back in those early years, I had no idea what was possible. We set annual goals and achieved to, achieved them, worked hard to, but to look this far down the road and to recognize the numbers, our national prominence, actually even international prominence. In 2019, we had 22 foreign countries represented. So I think it's safe to say international, and very fair to look at ourselves in that way. But no, I had no idea what was possible. I certainly wanted everything that we could do for the city. That was part of our mission, is to celebrate community. So to become an icon in the community that expands beyond the running community, that was a goal of sorts, but no idea how successful it would be. I'm not sure that anyone did. Even Bob Coughlin sometimes says, wow, this is a little bit more than I had even bargained for. But I think that the thing we all have to recognize, and this is going to be some personal, certainly not pontificating. I have no crystal ball, but I do think with the events of recent years, the pandemic specifically, all of us in every part of our lives have had to kind of take a step back, reprioritize what really, really is important. And certainly I do that on a personal level, but the change in the different way of doing things that's going to be required moving forward, I find personally energizing. When you've done something for so many years and the formula that has worked for you, you tend to rely heavily upon that. My many years of experience really doesn't count for as much as we move forward. Now, I'm not going to be overly humble and say it doesn't. It counts, but we have to do things differently. And for me, I love change. I love tradition. So I'm sounding contradictory, but to be able to take a look at who we are, how we've done things, and where we want to go, and the best ways to do that, I feel very optimistic that we'll come up with the right moves, many more correct ones than any potential missteps. I'm excited about the young, energetic group of people I get to work with who they bring ideas. They help to keep me relevant. They, more importantly, help to keep the event relevant. They tell me what's happening on TikTok, who wants this, who wants that. And so it's easy to be optimistic. I think to a degree, I'm that kind of person by nature, but the very time we're living in, the circumstances that we're all facing, and we don't do this flying pig thing in any kind of a vacuum. We have to consider and work toward how it's going to affect the entire community, not just our participants, not just our volunteer base and our charity partners, but what does it mean for the greater good? How do we function as a good neighbor in our community? And then when I look at the relationship we have with the Reds, with FCC3, the Bengals have stepped up and been a very supportive partner with us this year as we move to their backyard. Since we don't have our own venue, we have ended up in each of their stadiums or backyards, I like to say. And again, I'm just amazed at how many entities in this city have reached out and say, what do you need? How can we help? All of our resources are limited, but we're all combining them and trying to do the kinds of things that are best for the city, for the community at large. And how exciting that we get to be such an important part of that. So I'm optimistic. I'm ready to go. I do have to say that change can be intimidating. We've all heard the phrase, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm here to prove it incorrect. We can learn new tricks. And again, I'm already with some of the ideas and initiatives that are on the table. I can tell you that, yeah, you're going to see some new and fresh things from your Flying Pig Marathon. And Pig Works at large. We're doing it with every event, but of course, the pig is our primary focus right now.
Well, it's going to be an exciting spring, and I think that everybody is ready to go. We saw that in the fall, that people are just anxious to get back. And I think with the Flying Pig Marathon returning to its spring date, I think there will be more people than ever. And of course, as you mentioned, don't forget Bachfest 5K, that comes up before that as well. So it is good to hear your origin story, Iris. You are
That was a long trip.
you are so synonymous with the flying pig. I'm not sure that anybody knew the entire origin story. So now that we know how you got involved in the flying pig. So Iris, best of luck this year. It's going to be an exciting year, an exciting spring. And I think that everybody is ready to go. Iris Simpson Bush, the CEO of PigWorks, the umbrella organization of so many events, including the Cincinnati Flying Pig Marathon presented by P&G. Thank you so much for being with us, Iris.
Thank you. It was fun.